Welcome back to DIY Boomers. As we're getting closer to finishing our bathroom remodel, we're in the process of building our vanity. Here's the completed face frame, and the picture in the inset is the style of vanity that we drew our plans around. We had planned on using pocket hole screws on joints that would not be noticeable and dowel joinery in joints that would be visible. Both methods can be relatively inexpensive and effective when used in the right situations. Pocket hole screws are quick and easy. You don't have to assemble multiple joints with clamps at the same time and wait for glue to dry like you do with dowel joinery. But we ran into a problem with the pocket hole screws splitting our red oak. More on that here in a little bit. Dowel joints, however, are completely hidden and leave no exposed holes like the pocket holes do. Dowels are also one of the strongest joinery methods, while the strength of the pocket hole screw joint is one of the weakest methods, even when it's glued. When setting up your table saw, make sure that your blade is set at exactly 90 degrees and your miter gauge is also at 90 degrees. We set up an easy outfeed support for ripping on the table saw with our old adjustable height sawhorses. This is the inexpensive Rockler 3/8 inch dowel jig that we decided to use for our vanity. It worked very accurately for us, although this simple design does have its limitations. It's not adjustable for different thicknesses of wood, and the 3/8 inch jig centers the holes on 3/4 inch wood only. We also bought the 1/4 inch Rockler dowel jig for drilling holes in 1/2 inch wood. Each jig has a depth gauge for setting the hole depth. You'll want to set it at slightly over 1/2 of the dowel length. Then lock it in place with the included lock collar and Allen wrench. To line up the wood for dowel joinery, simply draw a thin line across the center of the joint onto both pieces. The jig has 3 lines molded into its face. 2 lines mark the center of each one of the holes. The other line marks the center line between the 2 holes. This center line on the jig is where you'll match up with the line that you drew on the pieces to be joined and clamp it down. So that's what's involved in doing joinery with dowels. A bit trickier than using pocket hole screws, as they can be done one at a time and no clamps are needed since the screws hold the joint as the glue sets up. But we are very happy with how the dowel joints turned out. As I mentioned earlier, we had a problem with the red oak splitting when we tried pocket hole screws initially on some scrap pieces. Before we began, we did a little research and discovered that it's very possible to split the wood on your project when using pocket hole screws on hardwood. This is the Kreg K4 pocket hole jig that we decided on using. They have a variety of different models. The various Kreg pocket hole systems recommend using their fine threaded screws for hardwoods to avoid splitting them. They sell a coarse threaded screw for softwoods. We saw one video that suggested drilling a pilot hole in the anchor piece to avoid splitting the hardwood, also saying that certain hardwoods split every time if not pre-drilled. So we bought a couple sizes of 6-inch drill bits and gave pre-drilling the anchor piece a try on our scrap pieces of red oak. I should also mention that Kreg does not make a fine thread 2.5 inch pocket hole screw. They only sell shorter screws with fine threads. That's possibly a warning sign for using pocket hole screws on hardwoods larger than 3/4 of an inch thick. Being that the recommended screw length for 1.5 inch wood is a 2.5 inch screw, and that our corner legs and bottom rails are 1.5 inch wood, we thought that we would go ahead and test the 2.5 inch coarse thread and see if pre-drilling the anchor piece would keep the red oak from splitting. So after drilling the pocket holes and pre-drilling the anchor piece, here's what happened. The first screw went in okay, but when driving the second screw in, it ended up splitting the red oak. Now I don't know if these scraps being so short had anything to do with splitting the wood, but at that point we decided to use dowel joints entirely on the vanity face frame just to be safe. We will be using some pine on the back frame in areas that won't be visible. We still plan on using the pocket hole screws to join the pine with the interior cabinet veneers. So we'll include using pocket hole screws at that time in an upcoming video in the Vanity build if we don't end up having any more problems with splitting the red oak. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Be sure to come back to check out the remainder of the Vanity build, along with the rest of the bathroom remodel to this point and as we finish up. See you next time.